Hi everybody, welcome to the Frontier Culture Museum. This is our blacksmith shop here at the museum where we make a lot of our own iron and steel implements for just about every single farm here. As you can imagine, we have farms from West Africa, England, Ireland, Germany, and then a couple of farms which also represent the Americas in the 1800s and the mid-18th century as well. Now, because of that, we can actually pinpoint kind of a lot of the different items that we need for these different farms and kind of in their different states. Depending on where you're making something, for an example, say if you're making a hinge to hang the kitchen door for your English house over here, that's going to look vastly different from the hinge you're going to actually have on any of the doors in our German house. And because of that, we can actually go through the archaeological record. If we are trying to gather information on any of these houses, we can take a look at different pieces and collections and archaeological sites, and we can learn a lot about the materials being used by certain people there, not to mention how they're stylizing their tools and their hardware and different things based on where they are geographically. So another good example would be if we're here in Ireland and somebody's farming, a gardening hoe is going to look vastly different for this farmhouse versus one that was made by a blacksmith in West Africa in the 1600s. So all of these different things, not only in appearance, but also based on where they're being dug up, what time period they're coming from. These pieces of metal could have very, very different sort of chemical compositions depending on what alloys are being used, what sort of silicates are present in the iron depending on where you're digging it up from. You can also basically have different grades of iron quality based on what part of the world you're doing this sort of work in. Kind of to get away from what we're talking about here, say going up and down the eastern seaboard of the US, depending on where you are, you can find vastly different sort of iron deposits and of different qualities. So somebody going through and cataloging items from a site built in, say, the Shenandoah Valley in the mid-18th century or even earlier than that, if we're trying to determine where somebody was coming from when they built their first farmstead here in the valley, you can actually take, say, tools that you're finding on that site, do a little bit of a chemical analysis on that, and you're going to find that metals that were being brought over by these families, a lot of them are bringing their tools from home. You could say, okay, well, chemically this matches iron that's found in this region of Germany or this region of England. And so a lot of that you can actually get down, fly on my face. You can actually go ahead and figure out exactly where these artifacts are coming from long before they made it here to the Americas. And so across the board, metalwork like that, you can do a lot to determine where something was from, what's it made out of. Depending on what it's made out of, how well it's resisted against corrosion being under the ground for a couple hundred years. And other than that, you can also look at higher quality materials like steel and see what's being recycled, what's being reprocessed, what was made of high quality materials versus cheaper materials. You can go on and on with it. But here at the museum, we kind of have to take a lot of those different aspects, combine them when we are trying to reproduce materials, and not only that, but items made from them. So that's something that we have to worry about on a day-to-day basis here and how we're going to actually make things here in the shop.